Alright, scopes and scope mounts on these budget rifles. Okay, first of all, and again this is my opinion, I don't care what name they have on them or where they tell you they come from, they're all made in China. Alright? And even on the access where it says Williams or whatever, it's if you take it off and look on the bottom it says China engraved right into the tube. So don't let any of them fool you. They tell you they're Weaver or something or Bushnell. They're all very low quality scopes. Alright, so most people in the reviews tell you when you get the gun, take the scope, they all come with a little Allen wrench. It's like a 3mm. So that tells you right there and then it ain't a US made scope. And they tell you to pull off the rings and the mount, and then maybe take the mounts out, clean the oil off, and then Loctite them and set them in. It's probably a good practice. If you're not really comfortable with doing that, then what I did with the Mossberg is I just went and had my scope torque screwdriver, and I retorqued this and retorqued the bolts on top of the ring, tightened them up, and I shot about 10 rounds out. It didn't move. So that may be all you need to do. Now another problem with the rings are, on Savage I had, when I got it on this side, there's supposed to be a little gap. The ring is supposed to not, is supposed to evenly clamp around the tube. These were touching on one side, and on this side had a giant gap, and then this knob and that was right up against the ring, which I don't know if it slid on me, or I don't know if that's the way it came. I can't remember, but it's not a good idea, because if it is loose and moving, it'll just keep, every time you shoot it, it'll bash against the ring until something breaks in the scope. So what I did with this is I just took the rings, off, and then readjusted the scope, torqued it down, and Loctited it in, and torqued in both the ring mounts or the base mounts and that, and then reset the scope. Now, a lot of people say lap the rings out, which I did. If you look at my videos on the Remingtons, where that scope slid on the 783 and there were burrs on it, I lapped the rings out. The problem with this is these rings have a piece of like tape or rubber in there that when you tighten this down, it compresses this, whatever this material is. And like it was compressed on this when I took it apart, and I had a hard time getting the top of the ring off. So this stuff does adhere, but I don't know if you move it. I've heard people when they adjust them or move it, that this material, this tape or whatever, or rubber in there, will come loose or it doesn't work anymore. So you may have to replace the rings if you have one like that. Now this scope is like that, has that rubber rings in it. I don't know what's in the Mossberg because I just tightened it down. I didn't move it or remove it. Also, if you got questions about the scope, the TC Compass comes without a scope. And what I did is I just went and bought from CDNN or whatever in Texas. They're a wholesaler. I bought for $30, and all together with the shipping was $40. The scope that's comparable to these, it even looks the same, and it had its sticker made in China on it. And these rings also have that tape material in there. And I've tightened this down. I haven't had any trouble. I've tightened everything and Loctited. I mounted that on there myself. I don't know if you took that out or take that tape out and try to lap those rings, if they'd be way oversized and no longer clamp. So that could be a problem. You might have to buy another set of rings. And I think halfway decent rings, or a set of rings and that will fit on there, are like $20, $30 or something. So again, it's up to you. And all of these scopes are in the same class. But let me tell you, out of the 5, and I'll go through the best one that I got off the shelf, which came with the Axis. You know, it has Weaver on the side, but underneath where it has a number in that, it says made in China. This scope, as is the clearest. I got the clearest picture with it, sharpest, nicest view on all the scopes. So the Weaver scope, you know, even though it's made in China, isn't that bad. Now, second up, Mossberg has this dead ringer, which I'm going to say is a Chinese scope. And it's a close second. Not actually too bad, pretty nice, you know, good as is. And all I did with this, didn't even pull the ring, I just tightened everything down and Loctited it with a torque screwdriver. And so far so good. Didn't move, didn't slide, didn't do anything strange to me. Almost the same was my, you know, generic scope I bought, $30. Fairly clear, sharp, you know, about the same. Now the Remington, the scopes the Remington put on there, I don't know. The rings, at least on the 783, when I fired it a few times, I noticed that you see where this gap is, it slid up there and hid. This is on the 770, and I think this has moved up a tad on me. I can get a good view on it, but maybe it hasn't. But this is on the 243. These scopes are not the best. They're not that clear. I think you have a little thing to focus them here on the back, this little ring. But probably out of all of them, the scopes that come on the Remington are not very good. They're not sharp. So that's one detraction there. This is the one that moved on me. And when I did the videos, I showed you where there was a scratch in the tube, where there was a burr on this back ring. And I lapped these in that, but this one here, I don't know, it's real blurry now. And I can't focus it, you know, as a sight. It depends on you, you know. I mean, it works when you get it set. It hits where it's supposed to. Okay, it's just not that clear, not that good of an optic. It depends how important optics are to you. They're usable, they'll work. You know, I'm going to go out and test fire and show you. But they're all in the same class. Like I said, the one that came on the Axis seemed a bit sharper and clearer to me right from the get-go. The one on the Mossberg isn't bad. And it's equal to the one I bought and put on the Compass. Now, in terms of buying these guns with scopes, if the scope and the clarity in that is important to you and you're willing to spend more money, you could do what I did and put a $30 scope on it, or you can get something a little bit better. Thompson Center Compass, with discounts and a rebate, which I think is still there, a $50 rebate, you can get the rifle for $250. You know, and also it has the threaded muzzle and the special rifling. So if those features are important to you, plus you have the option of putting whatever kind of scope you want on there, that's where the Compass kind of has an edge. It gives you more of a variation, and at about $250 retail price isn't bad. Okay, you can forego it. If you're not into mounting the scope or want to fool with it, all the other ones, I strongly suggest you check and tighten down everything, you know, at least do that, or take it apart, clean it all up, then remount it and Loctite it. before you go out shooting it, because irregardless, if the thing slides and the force, the recoil breaks the internal components or something, then it's no good to you there. So that's about it on the scopes. They're all about equal. The nicest, sharpest one came on the Axis, then the Mossberg, and like I said, it's equal to the $30 one I mounted on my compass. And the Remington's, while usable, I've shot a few other Remingtons that my friends had me work on, and they're usable scopes, but I highly recommend on the Remingtons remounting them when you get them, so you don't run into any problems. Just check the rings out. And so that's about it with the scopes. You're all on kind of equal footing. The one that came on the Axis has a name on it, but like I said, it's engraved "Made in China" on the bottom. It's probably the best one out of there. And go to the store, and usually they have a couple of them. Check them out. The only thing is, when I went to look at the Mossberg, Academy will have 4 or 5 guns, I guess all in the different calibers. And then if the gun's pulled, that means they ran out of that caliber, I guess. Because I asked for a 270 and he handed me one out of the rack. And when I picked it up and looked at the scope, you could see where it's been moved and loose, and the one that they're handling is been jostled around. So it's a good idea to tighten them down and before you go out and shoot them, even when they're brand new out of the box. And they do tell you that they are bore sighted from the factory, which they're kind of close. They stay on a 12 by 8 sheet of paper, all of them have done that, other than the one that I mounted myself. That was way off. That was, I had to tune that in. But all of these, on one of them standard rifle targets I use, put a bullet on the paper right off out of the box with the ammunition I got. So they are somewhat bore sighted, but double check and make sure that your rings and that are all tight.